Today we're going to be looking at 15-year-old prodigy Andy Woodward effortlessly overtaking Hans Niemann in the US Chess Championship. More importantly, first, I would like to send my heart out, my regards to Naroditsky's Danya's brother, family, parents. I cannot imagine what the parents are going through. Losing a kid is nothing any parent ever wants to see, nor should see. Danya was well-mannered, well-spoken, proper, humble, everything a parent would love their kid to turn into. Went to Stanford, youngest ever author at a chess book, 15 years old, wrote multiple chess books, became a grandmaster, graduated Stanford, won the World Youth Championship, tied for first in the US Chess Championship. And these are just the accolades go on and on. And with doing all of that, remained humble. And for him to be taken out of this world at the age of 29 is truly a tragedy. There are a few things in life that make your heart ache, like losing a loved one. And it just, shocking events like this just put things into perspective. And my heart goes out to his brother and his parents. I cannot imagine. Who do you go to when you want to learn on YouTube? You watch Danya. Like, he loved the game. He loved the game of chess. He loved teaching the game of chess. He remained humble. He actually cared to make people better. He didn't clickbait. He literally wanted to educate people. And he was a phenom at the game and remained humble. Truly humble. So the chess world lost a gem. Again, my heart goes out to his family. Let us get into this game between Andy Woodward and less serious news. We get d4 by Andy Woodward. We get knight f6, and we get a queen's gambit. A queen's gambit declined. You could play queen's gambit accepted nowadays, but that is not what this game was. We get knight to c3, knight to d7. Development, still well within theory, kind of resembling an IMSO. We get a trade. Yeah, I'm more used to looking at these positions with the bishop on g5 and the bishop on e7, but I don't look at these types of positions all too often. I just see them in top-level games like this one. So Hans clearly distraught from yesterday's game. We'll see against Fabi, where he got annihilated, blasted off the board, and he didn't exactly bounce back today. But c5, it's a good line. This is a good line for black. c4 is an overextension. This is typically something you do not want to do unless you're trapping the bishop, right? If it's squeezed in, say there's a pawn on c2 and this knight is on e2. Yes, I know it's pinned, but you know those French positions where white loses the bishop. This is not the case, but it is an exception because black is just all in on the queen side. Now, the fascinating thing about the queen's gambit is sometimes black can be up a pawn and be losing, and vice versa. White can be up a pawn and white can be losing. It's a gambit, after all. Queen's Gambit, not even referring to the show. Most of you have probably watched it. Personally, I haven't, but I know it made chess explode just a few years back. And yeah, we get castles, pawn a4, pawn a6, and knight to e5 jumping into the center of the board. My mind just thought of a Dutch, even though it doesn't even in the slightest resemble a Dutch. Stonewall, that is. But we get this knight planted on e5. That's a commonality. Hans removes the knight, and black is up a pawn, but as you can see by the bar that is on the board, yes, you can see it. Black is up a pawn, but he's slightly worse, and that's kind of how these Queen's Gambit go. Having said that, the c-pawn is now a passer, and pass pawns move very quickly, and the game is well within the balance, and it can be well without, not in the balance very shortly. We get a trade by Andy Woodward, and Queen b1, I mean, to play these moves at the age of 15 is very commendable. And the point, okay, yes, you get a battery on h7. You're aiming at a sometimes poison pawn on b7, but that's not even the point. The point goes so much more deep. It's so much more abstract. For example, why can't you play bishop to c6? You might think bishop to d6, and you're correct. But did you think further? If you didn't think further, it's only a one-move threat, and that disqualifies the idea. So then you're just lucky. You have to see it the whole way through. Bishop to d6, the rook moves, and the queen gets trapped. So that is why queen b1 is quite a beautiful move, and I'm sure he saw that idea. So we get queen a5. He takes the poison pawn, which again is commendable in and of itself because it's scary to take these pawns. You know, sometimes your queen gets trapped and you lose, but not this guy. This guy, seriously, he's a prodigy. He almost qualified for the candidates tournament recently. It was like bad tiebreak. You remember that crazy last round? I mean, when Gukesh won, okay, so he won the candidates at 17, the world championship at 18. I was like, there's never going to be a younger world champion. And then we almost got a 15-year-old qualifying to the FIDE candidates. Granted, it's a stretch, but anything is possible nowadays. We got Faustino Oro. I don't even want to. That kid, menace at chess. Truly, like, absolute prodigy. They all are. But okay, this bishop on f4 stops the rook from coming to b8, so that's very strong. But again, black has, like, don't look at the bar. Black has a pass pawn for himself. We get a doubling up a battery on the b file, queen back to c3, and queen to b2. Suspicious, but he's going for a queen trade. Hey, he shouldn't have gone for a queen trade. He should have rook lifted up, but, you know, should have done. That's what the bar... Oh, bar sucks. Queen b2, we get knight e4. He doesn't go for the trade, and now Woodward declines the trade and leaves pieces on the board. You know that principle, blockade pass pawns? Who was the famous GM from history who said that? This isn't even a trivia question. I literally can't think of it, and I hope you guys can let me know who said that. We get queen out to a5, rook to b7. They say rooks on the 7th are very strong, and that they are. I'm assuming Woodward listens to Ben Feingold, never play f3, but it was the best move in this position, removing this knight. And you might be like, why can't you take? And that's the question at hand. That's a key question, actually, I should have focused on. The point is that it is an opposite color bishop endgame. Yes, with pieces on the board, right? We know opposite color bishop endgames high draw tendencies. But with pieces on the board, the aggressor is greatly favored. And there's many major pieces left on the board. And who's the aggressor? It's the guy with a passed c-pawn. So that's why the bar is tilted in Black's favor, in Hans' favor. Here it makes sense. Sometimes the bar makes sense. Other times when you don't understand it, you chastise it because it chastises you. And, you know, you let him have it or you don't. Bishop to c6. The rook comes back and pawn to c3. Hans is playing for a win. He's like, I lost yesterday. I have to play for a win. This pawn is 2 away from promoting. Maybe I could get a knight on d2. No hesitation from Woodward. Up on the clock against Hans. Hans is going g5. This is also respectable. He's playing for a win. This is fighting chess. We get bishop to g3. We get a rook lift. He saw Fabi rook lift, rook shift, checkmate. So maybe he's going for the same thing. We get takes. Takes. But the difference now is this pawn is not going anywhere. See, now the pawn comes off the board. So you're not worried about the opposite color bishop color complex. Plus, I guess you're up a pawn. Pawns should not trade, right? If you trade, then white is the one that's coordinated. And you see opposite color bishop endgame, but now white is coordinated. White is the aggressor. So white is winning. So you have to trade on your own terms, and we do get the best move. And then we get queen d1. So he had to play queen f1. Why did he have to play queen f1? Find the move. It's a good puzzle. The reason is bishop to g4, a deflection. Is Woodward going to take the queen? Probably not. Mate in one. So probably not. So he doesn't. We got pawn to f3. He's like, Ben Feingold, I think you're wrong. And good for him. Bishop to f5. We got pawn to h3. Again, crazy move. Just creating an escape square. So very cool, calm, and collected. Right? And back in the day, like when I was a kid and we used to play, like you always wanted to rush your attack, rush your tactics prematurely. But from good positional chess, stem tactics, and it's something that was very hard to get through your mind, but not nowadays. Nowadays, they're just very good at it. So queen to d5. Queen to d5. And Hans really would love him to take because now opposite color bishop endgame black is the aggressor. So if you pick up one motif from this game, it's that complex. But now Woodward goes f4 and that trade's never going to happen and this pawn is permabad. Kind of like in the English game between Fabi and Wesley So. right? Black got the space advantage. White got the nice bishop. Black has the bad bishop, right? It's a blockaded pawn. This is like the whole point of Benoni's, Banco's, Sveshnikov's, things of that nature. Pawn to h6. White is coordinating, claiming the open file, claiming the 8th. Queen to d6. But again, who is that GM? Seriously, who is that GM who wants blockades? There is no blockade, so now pawn to d5, because he gave up the blockade. Yes, this pawn is pinned, but the point is you're tying the queen down, right? Because if queen takes, no. Black cannot do this. That pawn is 2 away from promoting. White will win this game if White is Andy Woodward and he's playing Hans Niemann, which they were. White would win that. So we get f6, king h2. What is the point? Well, remember this pawn? Did you pick up on the fact that this pawn was pinned? It's not pinned anymore. Now he created a discover attack. He's playing all the right moves. Truly a great game by him. Hans takes the rook. Woodward takes the rook. We get queen to c8. Hans is devastated. Pawn to g4. Closing off the position, but we get takes, check. Woodward picks up a pawn with check. And you still need to be very accurate. He gets his queen behind the passed pawn, kind of like a rook. Hans goes for queen e6. It was his best attempt. What should you do here? See, so many people would be like, I read a chess book. I watched a video. It said opposite color bishop endgame draw. Most of the time. Most of the time you're right. But in this case, you would be wrong. But you need to calculate the win. So leaving queens on the board, you're still winning, but it gets dicey. If you can trade queens and still be winning, absolutely do that. And why are you still winning? You're still winning because you're up 2 pawns, and that's not why you're winning, because I've looked at 3 pawn positions, right? 3 pawn positions where a bishop fully controls the extra 3 pawns, and it's still a draw. But your passer is way too strong. You have tempo coming with a fork, forcing him to push, forcing an exchange. Now, the amazing thing here is this is what they had to calculate. So when Woodward spent all of his time thinking, he found the only winning line, because after king takes f5, there's only one winning move. You don't find that move, you're drawn. So you have to be absolutely positive. Don't preemptively trade queens or leave them on the board. Really go the distance in your calculation. If bishop takes f5, Hans cannot do this because in an assortment of ways, you just cannot stop everything. Not to mention you have the pawn side majority here. Black has nothing. Black has nothing. So he takes with the king. What is the only winning move here? The only winning move here, believe it or not, is king h3, taking, and he found it, of course, taking advantage of the fact that the bishop is obscured from seeing h3, and now black's only got 2 pawns left. There's only so much material you could lose. He absolutely cannot leave this pawn to be taken. So he gets tied down now, essentially, to the king side. Okay? Pawn's 1 away from promoting. Pawn stops it from promoting, but you see the king ties down his king. And now just utter mastery. Utter mastery. I mean, he creates the perfect position. So patient. Puts all of his pawns on dark squares. Moves his king. He doesn't care about this pawn. It's a deflection tactic. If bishop takes g2, promote with a queen, and of course you win that. And again, it's just not a draw. This is not one of those opposite color bishops, which is a draw. He promotes, Hans resigns. Deflection tactic. Moral of the story. If takes, the pawn gets through. So, a great game by Andy Woodward. Hans has got to bounce back. I'm sure he's going down in rating this tournament, but the Prodigy had his day. So, thank you as always for watching. I'll see you guys after the next round. Peace.